Hi, everyone. Welcome to Real Talk Besties. We are your besties here to talk about all the things pretty much that we want to talk about. And today we're going to be talking about DINKs. Well, it stands for dual income, no kids. And this is a topic that we're going to be talking about because there is this news article that is going around talking about how this is the new thing that's in right now. And I would just be very curious to see what everyone's thoughts are around that. And yeah, so that's going to be what we're going to talk about today.
Let's do it.
Yeah, and just for background, we want to introduce where we are in terms of personal life so everyone can know a little bit more about ourselves. So for me, I'm Tracy again. Welcome back to see y'all. I have a kiddo who is almost 5. So I'm married, have a partner, and I have a child. What about you, Gina?
So I am also married and I have 2 children. I'm just kidding. They're my 2 dogs. I guess I fall under this DINK title. Who knows?
You do.
I guess.
And I'm Charlie. I am not currently married, have been in the past. I'm not right now. I have never wanted kids. I've always known that about myself, and I think it's just a super valid choice.
Mhm.
So I'm ready to dive into this topic.
Yes. And we also need to get Charlie someone so that way she can be an official DINK. This is such a weird word.
That's
DINK
right.
is
Dink.
weird.
Dink.
DINK. Okay. It says here in the article, and this article was from The Guardian. It says that dual income, no kids, and loads of free time, DINKs are back and being smug on social media.
Posting all over the world these photos. They start their day out working at like F45. They're just, working on their bods. He's in the military, like upper level, about to get out and go into corporate, and she's badass in tech. And yeah, they're doing it.
They're living the life.
Yeah.
Kind of interesting because it says here that they thrived alongside the yuppies in the booming 80s. I used to hear that word a lot, like yuppie. And I had to kind of look up what the hell that was.
Yeah, I never knew that was single. I just thought it was a young professional.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought it was anyone from New York. But
that's so funny. Yeah, that's such an old word. I don't think any of us know what that means.
It is really a thing that's becoming more common. I guess I think it's been around. It's just now like it's a word that sounds funny. That's
yeah.
It. But I'd be curious, aside from like your friends, Charlie, are there any true DINKs?
I personally haven't met true DINKs yet because of our cultural aspect of things and our upbringings, right? And for background information, I'm Chinese from China. So back in the 80s and 90s, there's only the one-child policy. A lot of people, a lot of millennials in my generation were the only one kid. And because we're only one child, we get all the focuses growing up. And now, because everything gets more competitive, right? It's not like the older generation where one person works and the mom stays at home to take care of the family. Now that both the husband and wife have to work, it's just impossible to raise a child, not even 2 or 3, because the culture in China is that there's a term called 996 and 007, which means you work from 9 to 9, 6 days a week. That's the most basic in a corporate China, or 12 to 12, 7 days a week. So like, if you look at those hours, how the heck are you even going to make a baby? How do you find time to make a baby? Raise a child, right?
Yeah.
So actually, I have a lot of friends. They're not complete things. They just haven't made up their minds to be parents yet. But because of pressure from the older generations, right? Our parents' generations, like, we need to have your own blood carrying our family's legacy.
Yeah.
But it's kind of silly when you cannot even take care of yourself financially and personally. Like, how do you have the time, right?
Yeah.
Do that. Yeah.
And we have freedoms that the generations before us didn't have. I mean, even in the US, Gina, think about it. People my mom's age could not, just however many years ago, in the 70s, right? Could not get a credit card or a bank account without getting married. So there was more incentive to get married. They were getting married for practical reasons, right?
Yeah.
Whereas our generation wants to really find that special partner. I'm not looking for just one. I think life gives us many soulmates, and they each come into our lives for like different reasons. But I think we're just like more living, especially Gen Z coming up, is
Mm,
about life because like the feminists of yesteryears like did the work for us,
yeah.
and we're getting to do cool things like not
Mm,
get married just because like we can wait for the
Yeah.
right person. And
Not just because, like,
yeah.
um,
Yeah. And then when it comes to having kids, I think it's become more normalized as like a choice, right? And that I think that kind of goes hand in hand with how we're growing as a society too. Because I
yeah.
think like if my mom had said, well, I just don't want to have kids, I've always known that about myself, it would have been a big deal. Like,
It's also the cultural side to it. So like
yeah,
for me, I'm half Filipino,
yeah.
and I was born and raised in the Philippines, and my grandma had 12 kids. And
My grandma had
mine
10.
had 11. Mine had
what
11.
the heck? I mean, she was pregnant like a majority of this
Because
time.
there's no condom in China back then.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
money.
And then did Roe v. Wade come along? So they probably couldn't, these days I saw it on there the other day when I was shopping on CVS on DoorDash. You can get Plan B on
Yeah.
DoorDash.
Oh, wow.
Instacart also.
Yeah. PSA, y'all.
I know.
PSA.
I remember one day I asked my grandma, or my Lola is what we call them in Tagalog in the Philippines. And I asked her, I was like, why did you decide to have so many children? And she gave me like two answers. One was like the religious one, which is like,
Yeah.
no, God gave me blah, 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 AKA like no contraception. Okay.
That's the answer I
And
got.
then she also gave me, then like the older I got, I was like, but why? I asked her
Mm.
again, and she gave me the other, like more, like, I'll keep it 100%. And it was basically, well, because, we own a farm and we needed labor. And I was like, that's
Same.
horrible. And
Yeah.
so it's like, so it's basically to get free labor. I know this
That's
is
the way it was.
yeah.
And it was a whole system in place where like buddy system, like
Yes.
older kids helping to basically raise and parent, whereas
Yeah.
we don't really expect that of children these days. It was just
Yeah.
a different time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting how that was. And so
Yeah.
I'm kind of happy that there's like that it's being acknowledged that dinks exist. I really wish that
Cool,
there
yeah.
was a different name.
It's fun to say. I
Yeah.
don't know what it reminds me of, like plink, like plinko. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, come on, let's be real. It kind
Dink.
of reminds us of the other word.
Oh, I
Let's be real.
really hadn't.
Well, Gina, what about you? You're married, right? But no,
Yeah.
you have fur babies. But like, why?
For me, it's like it's an interesting thing because that's why I don't know if I qualify as a dink, right? Because they say that it's for people that decided they don't want kids, or like people that are not struggling through like the whole IVF like hell, and trying to adopt or have a kid. And so I kind of, can I be a half dink? I do want kids. My husband and I have talked about it. And I do enjoy like the benefits of not having kids. So there's like,
Yeah.
I'm in this middle ground of like, I want my freedom, you know.
Send your kid to boarding school since like
no.
elementary school or what?
Yeah, I think I'm just a TBD. I'm a
Yeah,
TBD.
TBD.
Yeah.
The rest is still unwritten.
A half dink.
I would say my mom was a half think then because she actually sent me to boarding school when I was 7.
Oh my goodness.
Yep.
How old were
I-
you there?
It was a rural area that there was no paved
Wow.
road at the time. So the teachers, security guards, the cooks, like administrative people, students, we all lived there.
We need to have an offsite talk about life. That's
Yeah.
what we need.
Yeah.
And we don't get to go home once a month. And I basically went there from 7 till 15. Then I came to the U.S. So I argue my mom was.
You came to the 15. You came to the U.S. when you were 15.
Yep. So I went to boarding school from 7.
How old are you now, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 33. I remember during SARS, we had a lockdown, so we couldn't go home for like 4 months. because the quarantine.
What?
Can you imagine
Oh my God.
elementary and a school kid? I think I was in elementary school.
So did your parents like come visit every once in a while? Like what the heck?
We have like school buses and airplanes, so people come from all over the country. I was living in the same province, so like the same state equivalent. So I just need to take the bus, like their school bus. But people who live outside of like the state, the province, they have to take the airplane to go home once a month.
Oh my gosh. Whoa.
I'm just saying there's an option for you to be half dink because then you
Damn, I don't want to be that kind of half dink. You know what? We should tell the Guardian that we have another, like,
Yes.
definition. Half dink is like you have the kid, but you put them in boarding school or something.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was tough. I'm telling you, it was tough.
Yeah.
You have to learn how to fold bed sheets, wash your clothes, all the stuff by hands.
By
It's like
hand?
military, by hands.
That's crazy.
No AC, no heaters. You have to do all the chores within the people who live in the dorm.
Boarding school is sounding a lot like my basic training, but I was only there for 9 weeks. Like you've lived this life.
Yeah, like all your mattress, like everything. You have to use like an iron.
Yeah, get the hospital corners going.
Yes, and then the angle of the pillow, they have to line up with like all four
Okay.
beds.
You lived this, right?
Yes.
For
Wow.
years,
And the angle
right?
for toothbrushes all have to be the same 45-degree angle. I'm telling you, and
It was
you
like
get it right.
military school, basically.
It felt like military school.
Whoa.
Did you get sent to military school because you were bad? What did
Well,
you
my
do?
mom thought I was I was a wild child, and she
I
had no
can't
idea
picture
how
it.
to raise
That's like
me
a Trent
properly.
Tracy.
No.
She didn't have the will or like the ability to raise me properly. So she was like, "Let me just send you to boarding school." I was pretty wild as a child.
But how, when
Interesting.
you say wild, what do you mean? Like
Yeah.
running around?
Not
Like,
American wild,
oh,
I would
okay.
say, because democracy, right? It's very different than socialism. Even though
Yeah.
the era that I was born, it wasn't communist, but it was socialism. So I would question the status quo. I would challenge things. I would challenge the rules, and I would get punished again and again and again without knowing why I was punished. When I just asked why can a boys do this? Why can a girls do this? Why is this way for this person? Why not for me? And I just get punished again and again and again throughout my entire life in China. Yeah.
Both of you, kudos for having survived all that. The only thing that I can contribute is that I know what hospital corners are because I watch reality TV Below Deck on Bravo.
There you
they
go.
do that for these super yachts. And that's all I absolutely know. Do you ever wonder if how you are now is directly because of that experience?
Oh, yeah. I've recently tried to diagnose myself with autism because of that experience. And because I got some feedback that like you're really direct. And as I did the research on autism, which is a whole nother rabbit hole on Instagram, but like, and some of it, maybe I am a little bit, but I think most of it is just I present so differently as a female because of my military experience, and it's accepted in some circles and not. Like in tech, it's totally fine. People like the shortness, the brevity, but then you get into a different, like when I did manufacturing HR, they're like, no, we want 4 lines of like, how's your day, yada, yada. Like I'm super direct. I question things a lot. And I think, it comes across a certain way. I'm not always picking up the vibe in the room. And if I do pick it up, I might not care. Like, if we got something to do.
Yeah, I think the closest for me was being in Catholic school from like
Catholic school, oh my
kindergarten all the way to high school. And I know like in the earlier days, like I was taught by nuns, and in the Philippines, like growing up there, when you acted up, which is basically like if you ask questions, if you're a little rowdy, you don't stand up a certain way, or you don't handwrite this certain way, they actually would beat you. Like there would be, and I say beat like with a freaking ruler, or they'll make you do this thing where, I remember this, like they'd make us do put our hands together, like a pinching kind of look like this. And then they'd hit it with a ruler because they know like it'll hurt your nails. because of those nuns, my handwriting is amazing. Like cursive and everything. Yeah, in the Philippines. Like,
When did you move here, Gina?
I moved here when I was 8.
Oh my
When my
gosh.
mom had passed
I did
away.
not know
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. I just remember like people saying like, wow, your cursive, like your handwriting is so neat. It's all like organized. And I wish that they knew. I was like, yeah, because if it didn't look like the handwriting of our teacher, we would get freaking smacked with the ruler. Like, what the hell? You know?
Yeah.
But it
Yeah.
still follows me. We're like, even now, some of my friends are like, hey, can you write our party envelopes or for my wedding? And I'm like, okay. And all I can think about is like that nun, you know?
Mm,
Like, I'm sure you probably experienced something like that too. Like, you know.
yeah.
I did
Well,
not know this about both of you. So 15 and 8 when you moved here.
mhm.
Yeah.
Well, Charlie, I want to dive a little bit deeper about your perspectives because you went to the military. I went to a boarding school that has a military style, but I
Yeah.
chose to have children, right? I chose to have a
Yeah.
kid at a pretty young age.
Oh, I think that really did. I don't think that for me is why I didn't have kids.
Mm,
For me, I didn't want to have kids. I just never wanted it. Like I never had that ache or whatever. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? I'm fine to babysit somebody's kid for a little while and then I want to give them back.
mhm.
Also, I guess because this is called real talk, I
It got dark again for Charlie. Oh, there we go.
we're just gonna leave that in there.
Yeah.
My cheapo Amazon ring light, y'all. We are real over here, okay? But for me, I I don't want to procreate my bloodline. Like there's a lot of
Mm.
trauma, and I think there's a lot of people in my generation, the millennials, that are doing the work
Mm.
that our parents didn't even know to do,
Yeah.
right? And we are breaking generational patterns. And some of us, those patterns are just so bad and so unhealthy that we just don't want to put that out into the world.
Yeah.
And we may not even have the skills that we
Mm,
need to parent because we had to parent the parent, right?
mm,
Wow. Yeah.
So for me, I feel like I've already raised a child. Like I have a mother with a very serious mental illness, doesn't know that she has it. She was undiagnosed until I started going to therapy. And then like
Mm.
3 of my different therapists, diagnosed her. And so for that reason, that's why I don't want to have kids because it's
Mm.
like I've already raised a child. I raised my mother. I
Mm.
always had
wow.
to be the calm in her storm
Yeah.
because, she was Chicken Little and the sky was always falling. So, like, I've done my job. I've parented.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know that. My mom is kind of that too.
Yeah.
I call her my daughter.
Yeah.
She doesn't speak English, right? So that's her excuse. Like, I
Oh,
don't
that's a
know
big thing right
English,
there. Yeah.
right? I don't know English. Therefore, as a 15-year-old, you need to know how to read all the letters. You need to know how to negotiate with T-Mobile,
Yep.
AT&T for lower phone bill, internet bills. Therefore, you need to know how to send her to the doctors, make the right appointments, translate proper medical terms to her at
Yeah.
such a
Mm.
young age, just because I don't know English. So therefore, and you're my daughter, you're my only daughter. So therefore, you need to know.
Is your
Which
mom here now or is she in China?
she's still here. She
Oh,
still says
nice.
to this day, I don't speak English. Therefore, right? I should know everything to educate her and to help her, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But
Mm.
I
Oh,
still don't have a kid. Actually, I wanted to have a child ever since I was a young age, and I
Mm.
always knew that I was a pretty cuckoo woman, right, in China.
yeah.
And I just like knew that I probably don't need a husband or I will not find one. And at a very young age, I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna buy sperms and then I have my own kids. Like I don't need husbands.
Yes.
I don't need
But you
husbands.
found a man, didn't
I
you?
just need kids. But somehow I found a man who was able to tolerate my craziness. But that's kind of how I see kids versus
Yeah.
husbands.
I think I fall in the middle. Like my early years, I was in the Philippines where I was surrounded by so many aunts and uncles and cousins. So I witnessed people having kids and knowing that there was this cocoon of safety and people jumping in to support one another. And then when my mom had passed away and I moved here to the US, I had to leave all that behind, and I moved in with my dad and his family, and they're a lot older. You know, they like my dad had me in his like 60s. So that's to give you an idea of how that is.
Wow.
So, um, and so everyone in that household was just there were about like 5 people there, and so I went from like this huge family to a small family of a lot of older people, and so it kind of made me think through like, do I want children or not? And that's why I say like I'm in the middle, because they were a lot older here in the US. I had to take care of them as they grew older. They went through
Mm.
certain ailments, you know, and it was pretty much like at one point every single year someone within the household was passing away from like old age, right? And so I had to go and take care of them. I saw what that looked like of having
Mhm.
a huge family where you're supported no matter what. Like if your mom can't take care of you, there's the aunt, and if the aunt can't do it, there's
Village.
the uncle, etc. Yeah, the village. It takes a village. At two, okay, what if it's just me
Mm.
and a
Yeah.
child? You know, or like, and I don't want my future children to have to deal with what I had to, where it was being a caretaker while still trying to find out who the hell am I, like in
Mm.
high,
Yeah.
elementary and high school. And so, but I see both. And so that's why I
Is
think
that your biggest hesitation?
I think it's the reason why I'm really set on being financially like
Yeah.
stable and prepared,
Mm.
because I know that, you know, when you have all the money, you can hire all the people, you know, or you could be
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
screw work, I'm not working. I'm gonna just be with my child forever and ever, whatever, you right. And then so that's why in my mind that financial aspect of
It
like
matters.
yeah, it matters, right? Versus like if I think if I had a bigger family and they were close and they were all here, then I would be like, screw the financials, like let's go, you know,
Mm.
let's
Yeah.
go. So that's kind of why like I'm really set on the financial side. And but now though I'm, you know, the age is a big deal. We're trying
Yeah.
to have kids, and then I also have PCOS, which is polycystic ovary
Me too.
syndrome.
I actually have that. It took me
Yeah,
2 years to conceive.
yeah, so it's harder just because of that to even conceive. And so it's like, okay, then we'll have to adopt. And then that also factors into money. So it's basically just money for me. That's,
Money.
yeah,
Yeah.
super
Money, honey.
financial. So if any of you win the lottery, just, you know,
You'll be number one. We
thanks.
will buy you a
Oh,
baby.
I'll even think like, you know, 10 grand. Well, actually, you know what? I've heard it could be more than that to even adopt.
I think it's a lot more than that to
Yeah.
adopt.
yeah,
I
that's
just
why a
think
lot of
very few people
Americans
would do it.
they fly to Asia to adopt because it's much
Yeah.
cheaper.
Yeah. And even then, like, and that's another thing, like, I think with adoption too, and why money is really important is because, like, depending on how much money you have, that can also be what certain companies will look at to see, like, okay, should you
Are you
be
eligible?
a
Yeah.
parent? Or it's like to find the right, I don't know, if you need a lawyer or you need to go through different things, if it's another country, you know, it's like that financial aspect is what's giving me anxiety. And then
Yeah.
coupled with also the fact that I'm worried if there are any complications with the pregnancy, it's like, okay, what will I be able to afford the best doctors,
But
you
you
know?
can't control that, you know?
Yeah, that's true. That's
Yeah.
true. So I hope I'm not a half think for life is the thing for me.
Well, can
Yeah.
we lastly talk about benefits, right? Pros and cons of
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
being parents
Mm.
versus parents.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, hold on. That's my dog. Sorry.
Oh, no worries.
First, so some of the benefits that I already can think about is the freedom of going wherever the heck you want the next day or just
Like,
doing whatever the heck you want. I remember vividly after I felt like I couldn't breathe in the house because I was like, don't get me wrong, I love my child. I was with him for 24/7 for a few months at that point, and I just felt like I needed to go out, step outside, and breathe. So I literally went into my car without telling my husband. I just left and to get some boba milk tea. That was my way
yeah.
of, and I never felt so good about getting boba milk tea. it was like heaven for me. And I remember like turning, my window, I let my car window down. I was like breathing natural air, right? I was like, oh my God, I miss being childless, that I could just do whatever I wanted at night
Yeah.
without thinking there's someone in the house.
Yeah. I can do whatever I want whenever I want. And that wasn't always the case because I did have like sort of a suffocating upbringing where I felt like that. Like, well, what can I go do to get out of this house for like 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Right. So as an adult, it's nice because like I can just pack my bags and go to Joshua Tree for the weekend if I want to. Or I can move for a job, like practical things.
Yeah.
And I don't have to consider like taking care of a child in that mix. Would love to consider a partner in that mix, but not a child.
Really, I will help you become an official DINK.
An official DINK.
So if anyone
People are putting it on their profiles in Bumble. They got something tomorrow. They're like, want to be DINK.
Okay, this is like a whole new thing there.
Yeah.
We need to talk about like the dating pool at some point because there's apparently all these new technologies, and I honestly that has to be a future episode.
What other benefits can you think about?
The
financial side, right?
The financial side. I don't think I personally have that regret if I don't have kids, but I think that's probably in the back of some people's minds. Like, well, I don't want to become 100 years old and wish that I had kids.
Yeah.
I think some dinks probably do have that in the back of their mind because that would be like super normal.
Yeah.
I don't. But yeah, I think just being able to go anywhere I want anytime and just having my free space. I woke up at 4:00 this morning. I didn't have to be anywhere today until 7, which is glorious. Usually I have to be somewhere at 5, but I just sat there and drank my coffee really slowly and it was peaceful and quiet. And I actually thought in that moment, and I think it was because you had sent the DINK article at some point in time. And I was like, I get to do this because I don't have kids.
Well, I want to play devil's advocate. In China, the first batch of dinks were the people who were born in the 70s. And there are actually quite a few number of them went viral on social media that they're divorced because at the time the husband agreed with the wife that we're gonna think for forever, cool, YOLO. Then by they get to the 40s, the husband realized that all of his bros, his friends started to have a family. And he changed his mind. So then they found, of course, other reasons to divorce the wife. And then later on, the wife found out that he married someone much younger, right? When their eggs are still very fertile.
I think that's going to happen, DINK life or not, though, right? Men in their 40s are always going to.
It's actually something emerging in like the Chinese social media. A lot of women actually come out to speak about how this has happened. Like in my 40s, of course, I can't have children whenever I want it because my biological clock has already ended. And there you go, my husband, my ex-husband just married this new chick who's like in her 20s and they just had a kid. But he promised me we will never have a children when we were married. So like it's happening more and more now.
I'm glad I'm older. Yeah.
It's just not fair for women.
It's not fair. We can't win for losing.
Yeah.
But I do think like 40-year-old men are always going to go after the 20-year-olds. And I say that
60-year-old too, 70-year-old too.
Yeah. They're all going after like younger women. They even on Bumble, you'll see somebody's age on their profile, but then in the text they'll say, well, I'm really yada yada yada, because they wanted to trick the system.
Wow.
So that younger girls would show up in their queue.
Oh, wow. What the heck? But you know what's funny? So for dudes, like when they're older, it's like acceptable when they're with someone younger. But then what the heck? Like, what if you're a woman that like you're well-to-do, you got it all together, and you're like, I want a younger dude. It's like
like Kristen Cavallari is getting dragged right now in the media, depending on which articles you're reading, because she's dating like a 24-year-old dude is hot. Like, get it, girl.
Yeah. The Kardashians' mom, Kris Jenner, wasn't she dating someone a lot younger than her too?
Was she? That wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. So
She's
I
got it
mean,
going on. Yeah.
well, you know what? Like, here's the thing. I think that for the people that were married to somebody, like they were dinks, right, in the past.
Yeah.
You know what? I think that it's okay if they end up changing their mind and they're like, you know what? We're not going to be together. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's okay. I think that's portrayal.
I mean, it depends. I think it's like for a couple, you need to grow together. I think about it like a business. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, we
but
gotta
it's
take
like
care of each other.
it's like the most unsecure thing on earth. Like, I love you for forever at that moment. How can I guarantee you? You know, we're thinking the same thing and we're moving toward the same direction.
Yeah. Well, something changed there, right? Maybe it was him. Maybe in the beginning he really didn't want the kids, and then he got really jealous. And for that woman, maybe it's time for her to be like, do I want to be with a guy who just wants to like have what everybody else has, or
Yeah, and I
want
don't think DINK has to be a permanent thing too. I mean, a couple could get together and say, "Hey, we want to be DINK," and then they can mutually like change their minds together.
I do hope that they change the name though, because this DINK thing is just really not. How do you
Double
see
income,
about
no
DINK?
kids.
Yeah, double income.
Another downside, though, it's huge in my culture too. Another huge downside is like my parents' generation, when they heard about the things, they're like, "Oh my gosh!" Because what happened when you get old? Like if you go to nursing
Who's
home,
gonna take care of you?
because in the U.S. it's fairly like liberal, right? Because you have human rights. But in
Yeah,
Asia, there's so many ongoing news that a lot of the elderlies are getting abused in nursing homes.
Yeah,
Even they have children. The ones they don't have children, the nurses know that no one's gonna
yeah,
back them up, no one's gonna come visit them. So they abuse those old elderly people. And it's
yeah.
a really sad thing happening. So a lot of my parents' generation will threaten the things saying that, well, you're gonna regret it if you don't
they
have
do that
children.
here too. They do that to us.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if
Yeah.
that's my only reason for having kids, that's a terrible fucking reason.
I'm like, you know what? Charlie, you could show them like those videos
Yeah.
of the people in like Florida in one of those thriving like communities
Yeah,
where they're just living their best life.
exactly.
Yeah, like they're just like they don't care about like some of them have never had kids. Some of them are like, thank God my kids are like
And I'm
out in the
not one of these
community.
people that wants to live till I'm 100 years old either.
Yeah.
Like, once I make it that far, just like, I mean, I don't know. I'm good just chilling.
My expectation is that I better have my retirement stuff all figured
Yeah.
out so that I could have that beefed up like motor scooter thingy, the chair. Like I want that like sparkling clean with like rims and stuff. And then I want to be in one of those nursing homes that is like high quality where you have like a 3-course dinner.
Very rincy
The private nursing home, not the public one, right? The private one.
Yeah, private.
Yeah.
Private. It would have to be private. So I would have to really work on my retirement to get to that point. Like that is a goal. Like that's what I want. Where
I think there's a huge financial aspect to DINK, right? Because most of the people that are doing it are higher income.
I also wonder how many of them are part of the whole FIRE movement too.
I think there's an overlap there, and there's a big overlap in tech with DINKs, because I'm all the time reading on Blind people saying they're DINKs or they want to be DINKs. So I do think it like draws a particular crowd, right?
Also, you're right. Like with the tech side, I wonder. Someone needs to do an analytics on this to see like, are there more DINKs like in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley, than there are like, I don't know, in the Midwest? You know what I mean?
Oh
Like,
yeah, it's really different values.
Yeah.
Religious.
There's a reason I moved here.
Yeah. Any last questions, thoughts before we end our episode that we want to share out to anybody who is a DINK, half DINK, or married with children out there that we want to impart to everyone?
You know what? I say good for you. And I'm happy like for the people who did the work before us, so that it's like even a word that exists that where you get to say and have fun with.
Don't try to do something because others are pressuring you or you feel like you have to do the right thing for your family. You just listen to your own heart, listen to your own voice in your head and make that choice.
For me is own your journey. You can be a DINK now or DINK later or not a DINK at all.
That's right.
It's all fluid. You can be either one of those at any time. So with that, everyone, thank you for joining us for our real talk surrounding dinks. And I'm so glad that we're all here and we got this conversation. I learned a lot of new things from Tracy and Charlie that I had no idea.
No clue. Did not know. Yeah.
No clue at all. So this is like new for us. But with that, we hope to see you in our next episode where we will yet again cover a bunch of different things. And we hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. And just remember, we're your besties.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.